thank you all for taking time to come and spend part of your day with us today at Tech Talk Tuesday. We are always happy to see you. Today, we're going to be talking about AI on display. We're going to be unlocking image creation in higher education. We're going to have some fun today and hope that you get, our goal is always to have you have one thing you can take away and go try try later today. So our TBR AI Learning Collaborative team, as always, is Aaron Hugas, Jamie Nelson, Pari Bott, and myself, I'm Sarah Hazelton, and we are the AI team here at TBR. If you've been with us once or twice, you have heard these, but I will always say them as reminders. These are some of our housekeeping items that not only do we use here at Tech Talk Tuesday, but we encourage you to adopt and use for yourself and your students as well. So first of all, you will always hear us say, protect your information. Don't ever put personally identifiable information into any of the tools that we show or use. We don't put our PII in there. We recommend you don't put any of your personally identifiable information in there. That protects you, but we also need to make sure we protect students and learners. So if you are using these tools, let's say that you are using them to look over a paper or some students' work or any information, survey responses, anything that has any kind of PII in it, you need to make sure you remove that as well before you input any information in there. So make sure you're removing names, that you're removing email addresses, that you're removing any kind of those identifiable information from, and not only your inputs, but also if you're inputting things that might have students or other users' information in there. And also, just as a reminder, we do not recommend using third-party tools. So those will be like Otter AI or Read AI or any of those types of tools. And if you come into one of our Tech Talk Tuesdays and one of those tools comes with you, we will very politely kick it right back out. And here's why. Those tools have their own privacy statements. They have their own privacy policies. They also have their own terms of use. And unless you have read through all of those, they're very different. And so we have to be really careful about what we're allowing to capture our information, because we don't know how they're using it on the other end. And so we want to be really aware of that. Now, there are some great tools that are out there. Copilot, which is embedded with Microsoft 365. If you're using it through your university's account, those issues are already resolved because it's a corporate account. You are covered under those terms of use. Zoom has some great tools in there. Again, if it's a school account, you're covered under there. Those third-party tools, though, are kind of the wild, wild west, and so you want to be really careful with those. So if you come in here with those tools, we will kick you out. And we also recommend you consider how you let those tools be used in webinars that you're hosting or other ways that you engage in your everyday. So let's have some fun today. Today, we're going to unlock image creation in higher ed. We're going to share some things that we've learned. We're going to share some things that we've tried. So we're going to talk about why AI images are useful, where they're important. We're going to talk about some buckets of where you might find opportunity to use images effectively created through AI. We're going to talk about a little bit about the tools you can use for image creation. We're going to talk about how to prompt effectively. That's really important when you're talking about developing images to get the right thing, to create that prompt that helps effectively get where you want to go. And also some tips about ethical inclusive use of AI tools for image generation.
Cool. So the first part is, why use AI for images? And what we know is the power of an image, right? So we have heard this saying that is attributed to many people, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so the reason is our brains process images very quickly and efficiently. So reading a whole paragraph or 2 paragraphs versus looking at an image is very fast and powerful. And there's connections and synapses that go on in the brain where they evoke strong emotions, create powerful connections. This is why images, are used very very much so in marketing campaigns and stuff like that. And the last piece is information, right? A single image will convey a lot of information very, very fast. And so that is the power of an image. The AI advantage is how it fits into creating these images or making these images, the process of image creation very fast. So in terms of efficiency, you as an instructor or as a faculty member or even as a staff member in charge of a marketing campaign can quickly generate images, and you can rapidly iterate and reiterate to get exactly what you want, right? If it's your imagination, you can get it to do it. Um, we can customize it. There's high level of customization that can be done, and that's where you kind of reiteratively prompt, and we'll kind of show you how. And you will be able to produce tailored visuals to meet specific needs. And then finally, innovation. And this is kind of it's ironic to say this because AI essentially is remixing everything, right? So in terms of innovation, that is our human piece in it, where what we imagine we can make AI create. And so any kind of new visualization that you can have in your mind, then that's what you can easily achieve using AI, even though we may not be an artist. I'm certainly not an artist. So that's what that means right there. So lots of advantages in using AI tools to generate images. If I would say if anybody is on here, please double check you are on mute. So so there's not other sounds coming in. So so that's our why. As far as our image buckets that Sarah mentioned earlier, uh, old school buckets here, but what we have done is we have grouped this presentation in helping you look at how we create educational and instructional images, how to play with AI to create, creative and storytelling images, how to use AI to our advantage to create some professional and communication related images, and then the last bucket is our functional and organizational images, and we'll play in each one of these areas, splash these buckets, so to speak, to kind of take you through each one of these. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Pari. So I want to start off with our instructional images. And these would be ones that maybe you consider using in a lecture or presentation or other learning activities. You can also certainly use them within quiz activities, handouts, that sort of thing. So I want to talk a little bit about my experience here in using the new image generation of the free version of ChatGPT. So I put in a very simple prompt to get myself started, was to create a label diagram of an animal cell using watercolor style. And so if you look critically at that first image on the left-hand side, you can see there's some opportunity for accuracy of some of those labels. Like, for example, we all know the thing in the middle is not the cytoplasm. So I gave it a little bit of feedback and I said, okay, try again. The labels are placed incorrectly. And I continue to have errors in the labels themselves. The image was pretty good as far as the elements within the animal cell that I was expecting it to draw, but the labels were all wrong. And so I kept on going and trying a different tactic where I thought maybe if I have ChatGPT teach itself a little bit about the animal cell system first. And so I asked it to describe the animal cell system before then revisiting the prompt to say, okay, now create a label diagram using that information. And that's the second image there. So again, if you look critically, there's some errors in the labeling. So after that attempt, actually, I was met with the message coming from the free version of ChatGPT that I'd reached my limit for the day. So the next day I thought, okay, let me change my approach. And rather than having it label this diagram, because it was doing a pretty good job with the image itself, I gave it a prompt to say, I want you to generate the diagram, and I gave it some of the cell elements that I want to make sure that were included in the cross section, but I asked it to leave off the labels, that I would add that myself. And so knowing that I could pull it into either PowerPoint or Google or Canva, and add those labels myself so I can make sure that those are accurate. And then I received the image on the right. The first iteration, though, still had, if you notice, these all have a box, and there's a theme with some of our images that we'll talk about today, that it starts off in a box. And I didn't want that background, that kind of cream color, to distract from what was on my page. So I asked it to create it again with a transparent background. And it told me that it wasn't able to create the transparent background because of how the image was generated. So I gave a little bit of encouragement. I said, I know you can do it. Please regenerate the image. And that's when it gave me that image with the transparent background. That's the one on the right. All right, so then another tool that we can use for more instructional images, let's say if you're looking at process diagrams or infographics, or if you're looking at conveying elements of a timeline, I highly recommend you check out Napkin AI. It's a free tool, AI tool, and it is text-based rather than prompt-based, where you can enter in your own body of text and then ask it to generate an image. And it's very similar if you've used the Smart Art application or feature within PowerPoint. It's very similar to that, but a lot more robust. It has a lot more frames that it can pull the information into. So here's an example on the left-hand side of a process where it's just illustrating going from the vaccine administration to the benefit of the immune response. And the one on the right is a timeline, a vertical timeline. You can also do it horizontally, that has some of the key points in time in the evolution of ChatGPT. What's really nice about this platform is that you can further customize the text, just like if it was in PowerPoint or in your Google Slides, where what's on the screen here you don't have to adopt, you can modify. You can also add other connectors, you can change the colors, you can change the font size, you can even have it adopt your own color branding style if that's something that you have for your use case. So I highly recommend that you check that one out. It has some new beta features that are out right now, and I've noticed in the last 6 months it's advanced tremendously, like all of these other tools that we were talking about today. So I want to introduce you to that. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Sarah. She's going to talk about the next bucket.
Absolutely. So one of my favorite things to do in a meeting or when I'm trying to synthesize some information is to be able to tell a story with that information. One of the newer evolutions of ChatGPT is now a more robust ability to tell those stories or to capture the stories in an image that you can use in a classroom. You could use it in a report. You could use it in a presentation. So some of those impacts is it really does help streamline communication. It really can enhance the collaboration, creating those, taking complex data and creating a visual that helps capture that in a better way than trying to explain it in words or with a chart, and then some more engaging presentations. So I gave it a shot, and I will tell you this output took about 5 minutes. I was joking around with the team and said, I think I'm trying to break chat right now. Because the prompt was develop a comic strip that accurately explains how to write a strategic plan, use a nonprofit as the organization. Now, the first time I tried it, ChatGPT told me that it ran out of time. So I sent it back through one more time. I said, you can do it. And I sent it back through one more time. Erin mentioned the power of positive prompting. And we've talked about that here and there, but we're finding more often is if you're getting an output that you know isn't right. So if ChatGPT is saying, I ran out of time, I can't do it, a little positive prompting goes a long way into getting an output that you need. So I said, no, I know you can do it. And I put the same prompt back in. What I got was really interesting. So I got this comic that you see in front of you, the How to Write a Strategic Plan. The elements that I liked about it, it is pretty simplistic, but it did come with an explanation for each one of the 4 panels. It also gave me the option to download it so that I could embed it in a presentation, so that I could use it in a course, so wherever I wanted to use it. It also gave me the opportunity to have it printed as a poster or formatted for a presentation handout, which I thought was a nice add-in. But what's particularly nice for me in looking at this output is that everything's spelled right. It is pretty on in terms of the steps. They're pretty big bucket steps, but I didn't ask for anything specific. And so I was pleased with this output because this does give me something that I could use in another way. And it was, once I said, yes, I know you can do it, it actually did it pretty quickly. It actually came back with it in like 2 or 3 minutes after I gave it some encouragement, where it timed out before, which I thought was an interesting experience. So there's an opportunity for some storytelling creation with ChatGPT now. This one was specific in ChatGPT. Some other tools have some storytelling as well, but that technology is out there, and I think it adds a lot to our opportunities to convey our message more effectively. To that end, when you're looking at prompting, there's a couple things you want to consider when you're looking at prompting. And I'm going to give you an example because I went out to test the tools and see if all tools were created equal in terms of image generation, or if there were some differences. And what was that experience? So a couple things to keep in mind, and we're going to reiterate some of these later, but when you're creating images, you want to be more specific in your prompt. The more specific you can be up front, the better output you're going to get. Now, I am not a paragraph text kind of prompter. I tend to be iterative. However, when it comes to image generation, I've learned that you need to be a little more scriptive and prescriptive about what you want. You need to know the limitations of the tools. I'm going to show you some of that in a minute. You also want to pick the right tool for the output, right? So Erin showed you Napkin AI. We're going to show you ChatGPT, but each tool has a little bit of a different personality, and you're going to want to know that. So here's what happened. This was my sample prompt. I said, I'm trying to build a logo for a retreat. The retreat is Elevate and Connect, Fun on the Mountain. And here's an image of a location. Help me create a logo that honors the location. So I gave an input and I gave a picture. Here's what I got. That top frame is the initial output. So I put the exact same prompt through ChatGPT, Gemini, and Grok. That was the initial output. I did some iteration, and you'll see the output on the bottom. Now, here's a couple things that I learned along the way. So ChatGPT does have some limitations on the number of images you can iterate, which is why prompting is really important. ChatGPT does a better job at spelling, and it responds better to the prompts, but it's still imperfect. So, and what I mean by that is the iterated output, I had asked it to provide a natural, realistic look, and I still got kind of this cartoon response in that output. Gemini is interesting because it has no limits on iteration. That thing will iterate over and over again. You can ask it again and again. Gemini's terrible at spelling on images. Using that same prompt, I think I got the word spelled a different way every time I asked it to iterate something. It also has inconsistent design iteration. And what I mean by that is, like, if you ask it, I really like that image, can you just spell this correctly? It will completely change the image, or at least it did on me, and give me something completely different. And so I was constantly having to iterate. But it did give me more realistic results. It gave me more closer to the picture that I had submitted than the other ones I tried. Grok was probably the most hilarious experience I had. However, it is not helpful in terms of image generation from what I was looking at. It does have no limits, so it will iterate. And I actually asked Grok, what kind of limitations do you have? And it will tell you, I can iterate images as often as you ask me to. So it will do as many as you want, but it is horrible at spelling. And it It does not iterate well. It doesn't respond to prompt generations well. So as you can see in the bottom one, I had asked it to use the Appalachian Mountains in the background with the building in the front, and put everything in the circle, and I got an outhouse with daffodils around it. So it didn't quite give me what I want, but this gives you a good example of what the experience could be using different tools with the similar prompt. And so there's some limitations and good things, but this just gives you an example of being able to recognize what tool you need and how to ask for what you need.
Okay, so a bucket that I'm going to address is professional and communication images. So I primarily worked with ChatGPT on the generation of these images. In the latest version, they have really made strides in the area of image. I don't want to say generation, image creation. Let's use that word. If you use generation with these models and you're talking with them, sometimes that's when you'll come back and say, I cannot generate an image. I'm not capable of doing that. So image creation is usually kind of the phrase that I stick with. And so what I was looking at here, and I was thinking about what are the types of images as higher ed institutions that we want to create with the different projects that we're doing. So it could be on the administrative side, it could be in the classroom side. All of the things you're seeing doing here would be great to implement with your students and have them use these tools in that way. Then they can understand another application of the different tools we're using. So looking at ChatGPT and thinking about, okay, let's think about some professional and communication images that we generate as higher ed institutions. So it could be social media posts, right? So we're putting things online a lot and we're looking for images that we can use. We've got some images built up from different colleges over the years, but they're still hard to find. And I don't know about you, but if you use platforms like Pexels and Pixabay, there comes a point in time when you start seeing the same images over and over. And you're like, okay, we need something original. I know lots of times I'll look at a presentation, there's an image that I've seen and I go, oh, okay, I know where they got that. So it's really great in that way. So we can have it create images that we can use in a social media post. We're going to take a look at that, one of those on the next slide. What about presentation visuals? We can do lots of times when we're building our presentations for these sessions, we traditionally have had to go lean on those open source areas where we could get images, but now we're starting to be able to generate those. So we can embed those within our presentations. You might want to put them on slides. You can prompt and give prompts that are describing your presentation or the content on your slide and have it generate images for you. An example of presentation down there in the lower left, I had it generate a report image for create a report image for Motlow State. And so something interesting that I threw in there with it was the colors that Motlow uses. And so in a moment, we're going to look at a slide where it talks about what you can and cannot do with what the tool can and cannot do with image generation, because if you're going to use a logo, then ChatGPT will not automatically go on the web and grab that logo. You've got to supply that for them. And so I played around with it and I gave it Motlow's color scheme, branding colors. And then I did upload a logo from Motlow State. Well, how did I get that? I just put in Motlow State branding materials. And so they're all public facing out on the web. So I grabbed a copy of the logo because I wanted to have a particular font and I wanted it to be branded for Motlow. And so I added that in and said, create a project report cover for me. And so that was the first one. So that was really good. I was happy with it. And in the latest version of ChatGPT, the ability of having correct spellings, we cannot understate it. When using Dolly in earlier versions, that's when we got all the wonky spellings going on in the background, and you still can get those, but it's getting so much better, so much more correct and crisp and clear when those appear in an image. We can use newsletter or report graphics. again, going down there to the Montlow State one is something that an application for something like that could be. Visual headshots or team bios. Okay, let's look at this one in the middle. So yesterday I was playing around with it and I was saying, let's talk about creating headshots. And so Chat and I was having a conversation about professional headshots and what it can and can't do. And so I got into a thought process with it and I said, okay, if I describe for you a professional headshot, can you create it? Yes, it can. So I gave it all of the characteristics that I wanted in this image. So I wanted professional, I wanted arms crossed, I wanted a background of an office. I started to describe physical features. And so then I thought, well, what if I uploaded a picture of myself? Now, I immediately went, oh, I could, but the PII kind of worries me a little bit. So we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But it can do that as well. So I'm not quite there yet of putting up images of myself, but that can be done. That is a possibility. So it can generate professional looking images and graphics if you need those for your reports and presentations or your social media posts, etc. And you don't have to worry about the copyright piece of it, right? Because you are having it create this image for you, and I'm not grabbing some images out there online. The option on the right, we've been playing with logo generation and seeing what it can do with that. And like I said, like I mentioned before, the older versions in DALL-E, we couldn't get the spelling very correct. But again, ChatGPT in this latest upgrade has done immensely well. So that logo on the right was just one prompt and it gave me that. So then I started playing, getting variations, but I really like that one. So that's an example of what you can do with it. Next slide, please. So this is the example of the social media post that I had it generate. And it did this one. It took me actually 2 prompts because the first one I didn't use it. It made up the logo for Rhone State, and it made up the font that it used for Rhone State. And so then I just grabbed a logo from Rhone State to give it an idea of what I wanted, and it generated that for me. And so just a couple of prompts. So it's doing really well now. So on the left, it talks about what you can do, how you can craft your prompt to get something like the image on the right. So I wanted it to create a brand image. I told it what it was for. It was for an open house. And again, you can tell it the colors. You can get down to Pantone colors or hexadecimal color codes, and that's the exact color that is in the branding packages that are available online. Or you can talk to your marketing group and they can supply those for you. But you can play around with this, and students can play around with this and learn how to then generate images for their projects. And so again, the more detail you give it, the closer it's going to be for what you want to come back. Prompting for images is different. It's really different than text. And I feel like, and I think my team probably feels the same way. If I'm prompting for text, I get closely back something I can use pretty quickly. Image prompting takes longer. It just does. I'm hearing feedback from someone. That's okay. Okay, next slide. Okay, we talked a little bit about PII and that moment that I thought, oh, well, you could upload an image, but do you want to upload an image? And so I started into a conversation with ChatGPT about privacy policy and what they have in their privacy policy. And so I have found myself in the last few weeks when I'm thinking about doing things, whether you should or shouldn't in these tools, is just engage and ask questions. And it's given me really great feedback. And so when I went in and I said, okay, I'm a little cautious about uploading an image of myself. You know, what does OpenAI say about images that are uploaded into the system? And it came back and said, images are not used to train the model or improve performance. Images are processed temporarily and will be discarded once the session ends, and you retain ownership of anything you upload or create unless otherwise stated. And so it went through with whatever you're uploading, and I'm on the fence because I still am. I'm not there yet, even though this privacy policy is a legally binding document. I'm still not quite 100% feeling that I trust it completely. And so I'm still thinking about that. So a chart from a report, a sketch from feedback, a document with sensitive content. Sensitivity in information right now, I'm still reluctant. If something's is public facing out on the web, then it's already out there, right? It's in the public domain. But if I have something that's sensitive that we're not sharing as a group or as TBR or our work team or whatever we're doing, then I'm reluctant to put anything like that out there. I'm just not there. Your image stays private, will not become part of the training data. And so we got into a little conversation within our group, and Pari and I had mentioned to each other that, hey, I really liked an image that I generated yesterday, and I went back to download it, and it looked exactly like it was doing the download process. But when I went to the folder to access that image, the image placeholder was sitting there blank, and I'm like, wow, that is there's no image there. And so with that testing, we come to the realization that yes, it is actually removing those images in a temporary fashion so that you can't go back to them later. So that makes me feel a little bit better. I'm still not there yet about uploading an image of myself, even though you can go on LinkedIn and grab it, right? Anybody could. So it's just a matter of just kind of, that needs to be a discussion that we have, and we talk about that more and what we're comfortable with. So at the very bottom, I threw on two little interesting things that ChatGPT told me it could not do. So I asked it, I said, hey, can you go on LinkedIn and grab an image of me and bring it back and let's edit it? And it told me, no, it could not extract personal data from external sites, such as images of people. If it were something like a tool that's grabbing voice, that's another one that kind of concerns me. We were talking as a group the other day about podcasting, and you can train these tools now on your own, but you're giving up biometric data when you do that and you upload your voice likeness. So it cannot go get images from websites that are pictures of real people and those types of things. Now, I could download a picture of a person from Pexels and upload it, and it's going to do that for me because it doesn't know if that person in that image is me or another person or whatever. But the act of me uploading it is telling that tool, okay, you can have this, you can work with it. Let's modify this image in one way or another. It can't copy or recreate the likeness of a real person from a photo, even with permission. So that was really interesting. I need to drill down on that a little bit more and have a further conversation because that's still a little unclear for me. So something to think about, some ways to produce professional communication images, online images, those kinds of things. But, you know, if you're having students do a project as well, have them use these tools to generate images to go along with the content that they're providing for you. It gives them great experience.
Cool, thanks, Jamie. So I'm gonna talk about our fourth bucket of images here. And those are, I'm sad to say, they're not as fun as the previous ones that we saw, but it's important to mention. So I'm gonna talk about functional and organizational images. And this is what you think about in terms of, let's say, the Gantt charts or the flow charts or project schedules or like a Scrum process of, you know, like a rapid sprint to function with the project, those kind of things. So this is an example of a real like live situation. And a lot of testing we do is actually on what we actually use in our work day to day. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the part in the top in the navy is the actual prompt, and it literally says to ChatGPT, create a simple flow chart based on the scenario I give you below. And the scenario is, you know, here's this process we are going to we want to adopt 3 to 6 highly impactful projects, and we will work in pods or teams. Initially, there'll be multiple teams, and then we'll come back and do the presentation and stuff like that. So as you can see, it's a lot of text explaining the process. And this is like real life, a project that Sarah actually came up with this idea and this process, the block process, right? And so somebody else in our team wanted a flowchart. And so I asked Chat to create a flowchart for me based on this scenario. So you can see when I gave it the prompt, it came back with this particular text-based flowchart, right? And so I'm from a computer science background. I can read this very well. This is an algorithm saying what happens from start to finish, if this, then that. But if you see here, this is a really good and accurate depiction of what happens in this scenario on the left. So already it's simplifying for me what this looks like in a flow chart, and this is much more easier to read, right? And so you can see how it goes. So it could have stopped there. When I asked for a flow chart, in my mind I was thinking of an image, but it gave me this text image, and so I told it, can you actually? I said, this looks great. Can you create a simple flow chart for me? From this. And so then it came back, it needs the little coaxing, right? It came back and gave me an actual flow chart. And now this looks very much like what I had in mind initially when I asked it to do it, which the intermediate step actually was good because it was a text-based output. And so if I saw some problems there, if I thought that something needed to be fixed, I could have gone in and fixed it for it before it created this, the visual version of it. And so I like that. And I said, oh, I actually like this. And then I thought, can you give me, because this is an image, right? So then I said, can you give me, to always be inclusive, I said, will you give me alternative text for this particular flowchart? Because I'm always thinking about how we can make things so they are accessible and they're inclusive. And so it gave me an alternative text explanation of the flowchart. So if a screen reader is reading this for a visually impaired person, it's going to read out the alternative text version. Now, this is the final version of the alt text, because first it gave me like a really detailed, like a much longer one. And I said, okay, that explanation looks good, but can you simplify this alt text for me? And so this is the simplified version of that alt text. And obviously it's a big font, so it looks pretty big, but it describes accurately what is happening in the diagram. And so as we start thinking about generating or creating images or a video or whatever, I also want us to keep in mind that we can ask it for alternative formats, right? Give me the alt text, give me a video describing this, give me an image for this. So we should always keep in mind that the more formats we have, the better it is for all types of our students, or all types of our audience out there who may need this information in different ways. Like I could say, generate a 2-statement caption for this, and it would do that for me, right? So in our workflow, we should keep those things in mind, so everything comes a full loop. So that was this was ChatGPT in terms of this is so. Sorry, I'll go back one step further. But the second example I have is I was wondering if it would create an org chart, right? And so we have lots of times a lot of our schools and institutions have this staff charts, staff listings, right? And so I was wondering if I asked ChatGPT, can you create an org chart? And you could start. Prompting can be simple. You want to be specific, but it doesn't all have to be all at once. So I just start by asking a question like, can you do this? And it said, yeah, I can do this. And it will actually tell me what it needs, right? So can you give me a listing of the people and the titles? And it will tell me what it needs. And so I asked it again, what if I gave you a URL, which is a website address, which has the staff titles and names? And so it said, yes, that would work, but it should be readable. It should be public information, that kind of stuff, right? And so I gave it a link to our student success staff page. And then I said, let's do an image with a hierarchy. I want to see names and titles. And so what it did was the first time after my iteration number 3, it came back with a text hierarchy. And so I said, can you do a simple visualization of this hierarchy for me? And so it tried, bless its heart. ChatGPT tried to do a simple visualization of the hierarchy, right? And now in my mind, I'm thinking that it got a lot of things right. But as you can see, intuitively, we as humans know that a ABC is going to be under a BC. A directors could be could be directly reporting to the VC, but most likely they are reporting to the ABCs and stuff like that. So as humans, we are powerful. Our brain reads that text information and knows exactly how that would organize. But AI doesn't always know that. And so I could prompt it further to then, so here's where the iteration comes, right? So this is the first image. I grabbed it as an example of what ChatGPT did on the first try. And as you can see, it got Emma's last name correct in terms of spelling, but it messed up Dr. Cartwright's last name, which is actually, in my mind, much simpler. So sometimes you will see some of those spelling errors and those kind of things are already there. But this is a good start to where if you don't have something like this and you're like, let's quickly generate an org chart, then then it will do it for you as a first draft. And then you can go back and say, hey, put the ABCs under VCs, which is what happened with Google Gemini. Right. So when I took the same prompt with Google Gemini, I actually used the 2.5, which is their latest experimental version. And I basically told it the same thing, except I gave it a little bit of context. So I told it some rules. And I said, for reference, the VC is always the highest, then comes the ABC, could be multiple ABCs. And then I kind of suggested one way to organize would be like this, right? So I tried to help it out. And I did the encouraging part. I said, I think you can do it, Google, like, let's go. And so it came back with, this is obviously not an image, but Google told me upfront that for org charts, I will create like the bulleted hierarchy, and then you can just import this into Visio or any of your Visual or Canva, whatever, and it will create it for you. But let's get the information accurate. So here you can see, it has two areas, and it listed the people in a pretty flat hierarchy, right? But it got the spellings right, it got the titles right, which was good. So I went a bit further, and I did some iteration, and I said, let's do some more indenting because I know you're giving me bullet points. And I said, directors report to the ABCs, and a non-director role reports to the director if the departments are the same. So I tried to use, their computing power basically, and said, can you do this a little better for me? Because you have the information, this is how you should organize it. And it came back and it was very able to do exactly what I wanted it to do. And so now you can start seeing the hierarchy, and I'm pretty sure if I went a step further and I say, can you create a simple flowchart, or can you create a simple hierarchy for me, it would probably do it. Or I could take this information, put it in another tool and ask it to do that. So very quickly, you can start seeing how it can take a lot of text in a very flat way and start creating some images for us, which will make sense of the information much better for us. So think about this in terms of like a policy document, a 13-page policy document, and say, can you create a checklist for me for this policy document? And it will do that for you, which is, again, really helpful. And it will create a PDF, like Sarah mentioned. It will come back and say, do you want this in a printable PDF? And so when we are thinking about images, we might not think about a PDF as an image output in a traditional sense. But if you think about it in the non-traditional sense, it is still organizing this very dense text information in a very manageable checklist or bulleted type of way, which is, to me, is still like a much better, sort of like a visual version of this prose, if you will, right? And so just some things to think about in terms of when you're trying to organize things or thinking about functional stuff like projects and project management, project schedules, Gantt charts, that kind of stuff. I will let Jamie take over here.
Okay, great. So we've been testing lots of different tools, and we would encourage you to do that as well. And we always like to encourage folks to take one prompt and run it through multiple tools to see what you get from each one of those. And that's kind of how the process that we follow to land on a tool. And you'll quickly find yourself understanding which tool to go to for certain kinds of things. So that will really help in that way. But this is just an example of some of the tools that are out there. There are more than these. We would like to say that these tools are all linked on the Bridging Minds and Machines resource site that we maintain for you guys. And on there, you'll find the tool, the link to the tool, the use cases, how faculty could use it, how staff could use it, how students can use it. And then also what the versioning is as far as behind a paywall. Is something free? Is there a paid version? Is there a trial period? So go look at that information on the Bridging Minds and Machines link. Yes, we can. I've got one right here, and it goes directly to, let's try, I want to see if we can get directly to that page. Thank you, Sarah. This one, I think, might take you directly to the page. We'll give it a shot and see. I need a little space there. So when you're there, just scroll down and you'll see a place where you can click, and there's an accordion menu that'll will roll open, and you'll see the links there for those. So play with them and try them out and see what kind of outputs that you get from the different tools. Adobe, a lot of folks think, okay, Adobe is expensive, it's out there. They have a lot of free tools you can use. That Firefly is a free tool. It's web-based. Just jump on there and play with it. And you can even animate your images on there. It does a really great job. Next slide, please. So as we mentioned earlier, prompting for text output is different than prompting for images. It's a little more tedious than prompting for images. Again, I think it somewhat goes back to these tools that we're using, some of them, obviously not Adobe, but like ChatGPT, its original mission is to be a text generator, right? So it was not built on, okay, I'm going to be able to generate these images. Then they came out with DALL-E, and that they put DALL-E within ChatGPT. But still, when you're leaning on ChatGPT, you're going to that default mission of I am a text generator. But they're getting better. They know that folks want these tools. They want to have the capabilities in there. So when you're prompting, think about this type of a recipe. You're going to start with a subject. So you're going to tell it what it is you want to see in that image. You want to apply a style or a format, infographic style or realistic. One of the things that I do right here, because I don't know what these tools can do, I don't keep it in my head or a listing of it. So I'll just say, what type of images, what type of style of images are you capable of producing? And it'll give you a nice little succinct list. And even looking at that list, maybe you may be able to generate some ideas in your mind of how you want to use this. And so that's a great way to do it. Don't try to get on there and do a lot of research trying to figure out who does what. Just ask it. What style and format do you prefer? Include your mood or tone. So if you want it to be happy, welcoming, serious, however you want that to be, instruct the tool to use that tone. In the headshot image that I had it produced for me, I said a friendly, warm business tone. And so it gives me those characteristics in that image. Set the scene in a modern classroom, natural lighting. So as much as you can give, it will give you what you want. But here's kind of the way that works for me. I'll get one back and I know what I don't want. Now, where this becomes kind of an issue is that right now, many of these tools, you're limited to just a few images that you can generate for a certain time period. So what you can do is to give it a text prompt for an image and say, improve this prompt, and let it come back and give you an improved version, because it's going to give you, what it has given me so far, is a prompt that's going to allow me to get closer. I'm giving it guardrails, right? I'm giving it ideas in text base, but I'm not asking for that image. I want it to come back and tell me, okay, ask me this question and I will get you to your image faster, potentially. So let it improve the prompt for you. So if I'm not, remembering to give it all these different kinds of things, then let it tell you to do that. Be specific but flexible. Don't micromanage it. Don't try to over instruct it in the beginning. So give it some flexibility. Be encouraging. You can do it. I believe in you. This is hilarious. We talk about this in our group all the time. And again, we think it may go back to somewhat of the fact that tools like Gemini and GPT are text-based, but it'll come back and tell you, I can't do that. And you can say, yes, you can. I did that today. And it came back and gave me my images. So it was giving me some back talk for a few minutes. And then I just kept saying, come on, you can do it. You can do it. You can do it. So then it generated my image. So again, those are just some strategies you can follow, but put your prompt in, tell it to improve your prompt and work from there. And that will cut down on having to generate images over and over and over, and you might hit your quota.
So we are going to obviously mention the points about ethical and inclusive use. How many people heard that code that the CEO of OpenAI basically said that our GPUs are burning or melting or whatever? And there's so many. If you put that our GPUs are melting in the Google Images right now, there's so many memes about that right now. But it was basically him saying that you are running with this, which is great. But we can't keep up. We cannot keep up, and so they were trying to employ more people. They were trying to increase their their computing and all that kind of stuff. So what we want to emphasize on is that have an objective in mind and create images for that particular objective. So because we want to be mindful of the cost of image generation, we want to be intentional. Things could be done for fun, but right now that's not where it's at. You'll get cut off in some tools, and otherwise, we want to make sure that we are creating images in higher ed just for intentionality purposes and mindfulness purposes. We want to keep accessibility and inclusivity in mind. I gave you a couple of examples of that. We want, alt tags. If you're creating images, ask it to create an alt tag, ask it to create a caption, other format as needed, because we want to consider all types of students, including neurodiverse students. And keeping that in mind, we were also talking in our team about how, remember when websites first came out and people wanted text flying in or the flashing text and all that kind of stuff. We want simple images that convey our message very powerfully, very effectively. We don't want to make it so that it's very hard to read or it's very busy and that kind of stuff. Obviously, if you're creating comic book style storytelling stuff, that's great. And that's very purposeful. If it's purposeful, that's okay. But otherwise, less is more. We want to keep inclusivity in mind. We want to keep accessibility in mind, and we want to be very intentional. But with that being said, here's a reminder where ChatGPT Plus is free for students for these 2 months leading up to exams. And they have done that intentionally so students can use it not for image generation necessarily, but for study guides, just right in time for exams and stuff like that. So if your students don't already know this, you could tell them that, or this is just a good reminder for everyone who wants to try this stuff out. It will be very useful for your students, since as we have covered in all our tech talks, basically for various reasons. So and I will, yes, Jamie, go ahead.
So and Pari, I love those tips and pointers, and we would also say, as you're having the tools generate these images for you, have them give you information on accessibility. Say, what considerations do I need to be thinking about? So here's a big one. When I used to teach web development and students would generate images that were like diagrams, there's a large percentage of the male population that has some color blindness when it comes to blue and green. And so it's those kinds of things that we may not be readily thinking about until it's in front of us as far as accessibility goes. And so have the tool to just say, okay, we need to make sure that we're hitting all of the points we need to be hitting on accessibility. Guide me through this process. And they're really good at that as well, too.
Great tip.
All right. Well, we have covered a lot today. We do have a couple minutes that we will hang out and answer some questions, but we want to make sure that you have access to our resources. We have put in the chat. We have our Bridging Minds and Machines. We gave you the direct link to the resources earlier. That's a much broader site, so make sure you check out all of the resources on that Bridging Mind and Machines site. You are welcome to go ahead and register for our Tech Talk Tuesday in May. That link is in there as well. Or I will put that link there in just a second. And you are always welcome to reach out to us at ailearning@tbr.edu. We are always happy to talk with you about your projects, what you're learning in AI, and how and find ways that we can help you. We do have a bit of a sneak peek, a little bit of an exciting announcement. You all have been asking for a while for us to develop affinity groups or communities of practice around the adoption of AI, how specific groups of people across the system are using AI, and bring together some affinity groups so that you can learn across the system more effectively. So we are bringing affinity groups to you soon. You need to be looking in your email probably in the next couple weeks for a little bit of a survey so that we can get the right groups started. We are going to start small. I will tell you right away, we are starting small. We're going to start with like a group or 2 or 3 and develop those groups. And as they grow, our intention is to add more groups. But do be looking for that because we're very excited about the opportunity to learn in these affinity groups together. You have asked and we have answered, so they are coming to you soon. We want to thank you all for taking time with us today. We know you're really busy and we really appreciate that you hang out with us for an hour once a month in our Tech Talk Tuesdays. Know that we are here to support you and we are also here to help you. So if there's anything we can do to help you, we offer training, customized trainings and those kinds of things as well. Don't hesitate to reach out and ask. And we will hang out for just a couple minutes and answer questions. But if not, I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. And I'm going to pop the link to register for the Tech Talk Tuesday in May in the chat right now. Have a great day.